Oh, Pearson gets into the 95 of Bolts. Here comes the caution.
Flag is dropped here at Daytona, and away we go for the first time. Nicholas Porcel, Sean.
Looks like most get through unscathed. Look at that, there's Reed Gibson. A big move at the inside line of Dom's, possibly a little bit of contact.
Up now as we've got three wide action going through turns 1 and 2.
And they're underway. Eric Hahn takes a nice jump. Wilson hasn't let him go very far.
Go out here for Circuit Spa Francorchamps. Alex Johnson's off to a brilliant start there.
See just how oddly shaped this one is. We saw in the background Eric Hahn go for a bit of a swing, and he's gone and he's over.
New stuff. Cody Graham's the one-on-one up into second place. Alex Johnson 6/10 lead at the moment.
They're dicey up front. There's Andrew Kessel, Justin Sang.
They are ready to go. The lights are out, and away we go for the very first time here at Okayama International Circuit. Finley Fitzsimmons.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Old Bastards Racing League. I am your host, Gareth McAllister, bringing you the action in 1080p, 60 frames per second with Team Goon Squad, if my Australian internet allows me to do so. We're here for the Old Bastards Racing League Kimball Cup Series at the Charlotte Roval. Now, we got a very interesting race for you tonight. It doesn't look like it's super hot. Well, actually, temperature of 102 Fahrenheit. That is a very, very hot track. A lot of drivers complaining about the slickness of this one heading into tonight's event. You can see Courtney Nelson already at the top, just being replaced, as I say it, by Shane Wiesman at the top of the grid there. We're going to go and have a little look-see-loo at, let's have a look at Mark Fish here as he makes his way around. Now, making his way around the track as he gets ready to put in, he's getting ready to put in his first lap time in just a moment here, but we will be heading for 40 laps here at the Charlotte Roval. A very hit and miss track from what I gather from a lot of people around the paddock area as well as around the fan base as well. Pac-Man saying, go Team VLS. Thanks for joining us in with the booth, Pac-Man. Each and every week he is showing up along with some others, so very much appreciate them coming in, showing their support for the league as well as these drivers. Very interesting pit entry and pit exit here at this track as well. So the Charlotte Roval definitely exceeding track limits on many occasions at this Roval, but not considered being off the track at all. Very interesting the way they've actually designed this one, but certainly my favorite Roval, probably in the entire, I'd almost say, pretty much in the world at this point. Not a huge fan of the Daytona road course, me personally, but I understand that there's quite a lot of love around that as well, as we continue to watch and see how Mark Fish able to get his way with the GoPro backed 42 machine, getting a little bit high on those curbs. Now, these curbs able to be jumped quite significantly here at the Charlotte Roval without too much problem. It does upset the car a fair bit, but also the fastest way through if you can manage that. Tyler Watts, sorry, not Tyler Watts, Michael Watts. I'm sure if Tyler Watts was watching, he'd probably get a kick out of that one, a friend of mine. But Michael Watts at the top of the field right now, and that is very unsurprising, I'm sure, not just to me, but to everyone as well. Watching at home, Mark Fish putting in the 10th fastest lap time there with a very respectable 1:23.49, just getting knocked out of the top 10 by Tom Ogle. As we have a look at Tom himself, he's got another lap to try and extend his position up on the table here on the left-hand side of your screen. And just seeing how this one is going to shape up here, because as we were saying, Tyler Watts has been the dominant car in every single road course we have gone to during the season. He won at Sonoma after having to fight back through the field, and he won at Watkins Glen fairly dominantly, I believe, once he made it through as well. So He is definitely the road course master here in the league, but Courtney Nelson not too far behind on timing. So potentially a battle at the front there, which will definitely be good to see. As you can see, Ogle really attacking those curbs, getting as much of it as possible. Still allowing that machine to turn through the corner as it jumps around. Fuel window tonight, 33 to 38 laps. And these drivers have a 40-lap race. That is a bit too much curbing, and that is going to not bode well for Tom Ogle. And you can see there, it did not bode well for him at all. Alan Wanamaker, we've just jumped on with, and he has already completed his laps. So it looks like he is going to be taking a bit of a scenic route, potentially get ready for a pit stop. Wayne Hufford, as for practice, Wayne Hufford just ahead of him on the circuit. Now Wayne Hufford is trying to make his first few laps in this session as well. He's going to get ready to look forward to his time in the sun. As being careful of the curbs, not necessarily the fastest way, but definitely the safest way around this Roval. Not getting the car upset at all, and that seems to be what the driver of the 75 machine, Wayne Hufford, wants to do. And we certainly can't accuse him of anything bad with that, as he does set himself into the 9th position with another lap to try and get something done a little bit higher up in the standings. Now, we just, after last week's race at Talladega, eliminated 8 of our playoff drivers to go from the round of 18 to the round of 10. And we are sitting at the moment with Robinson, MacArthur, McDaniel, Fish, Ogle, Hill, Hufford, Lynch, Wanamaker, and more are going to be your top 10 drivers, heading for a 5-race shootout to see who will be crowned the OBRL Kimball Cup Series champion for 2023. Jim Smith telling us he wasn't able to race, but he tuned in. It's good to have you here in the spectator booth. Unfortunately, not able to join us for the race. Bit of a sad one, that, especially for me up here in the booth. But hey, that is perfectly fine. We do have about 23 entries that have made it onto the field tonight. A little bit smaller than we're used to seeing. The Charlotte Roval, definitely a hit or miss track with a lot of drivers though. So I wonder if the Roval could be to blame for our slightly smaller field here tonight, as well as road courses themselves not being massively popular with the NASCAR fan base, I would say, on the broader spectrum of things. Josh Robinson just set in his final qualifying time, putting himself in the top 5 positions, and Wayne Hufford looks like he will be unable to increase his time any further, so he will be in the top 10 as well. As we're just about ready to head on over into the race as we get ready for it. Jim's saying that he's going to go out on a limb here and taking Watts to win this one. Yeah, Watts, shades of Marcus Ambrose back in the day. I'm not sure if anyone remembers too well, but definitely a fan favorite of mine, has to be said. Of course, the Australian in the early 2000s, bringing it home on the road courses pretty much every single time with his V8 supercar background. Unfortunately, the oval's not exactly his strong suit, but the amount of media pressure surrounding him was that equivalent to Michael Watts, as we are constantly looking in his direction to see what he has on offer for us at the start of every single road course. So we run through the grid and we'll get a little bit better of a picture for you here. There we go. So Michael Watts going to be starting on pole. No surprise there, but the surprise really, Courtney Nelson not too far behind, only about 3/10, so that is going to lead itself to potentially some very good racing going forward. Clint Rice and Shane Wiesman are going to be lining up in your second row. Rice has shown pace on a lot of the road courses that we have seen so far this season, so look forward to seeing him up towards the front, as well as Josh Robinson and Dwayne MacArthur starting on the third row. No surprise to see them up next to each other as well. There's going to be some interesting battles going forward. Dan Hill and Clay Walker in your fourth row, with Tom Ogle alongside Wayne Hufford in the fifth row. Lloyd Moore and Brian Lynch side by side in your sixth row. Cycling it on back, your seventh row consisting of Greg McDaniel and Mark Fish in the GoPro machine, with Chris Bates and Alan Wanamaker in your sixth row behind them. Your ninth row consisting of Greg Hammond and Dean Gear, Patrick Martindale and Dustin Martinson in your 10th row. Your 11th row consisting of Bruce Pearson and Victor Lane. Victor Lane, always a fan favourite out here at the OBRL Cup Series. A lot of people cheering him on as per usual, and very, very lovely to see. Hopefully Victor can perform quite well this race. Look forward to seeing him moving through the pack as the race wears on. Troy Baker showing as not starting on the grid at the moment, at the back on his lonesome in the 23rd position, but not showing starting with the rest of the field, so potentially a non-starter there. As we are going to get ready to send them off, and they're going to line up too wide. Now, a very tricky start to the green flag here at the Charlotte Roval. You've got that very heavy chicane right on the front stretch, and that is going to lead itself to potentially some interesting developments on our first green flag of the race. Now, a lot of these drivers very worried about the track temp being as hot as it is, 102 degrees in qualifying, and very similar to that right now. So a lot of these drivers going to be worried about that, as well as getting these tires up to temp. These cold tires not going to allow these drivers to get on the brakes and going to feel very, very slidey. So we will see how this one comes into being. But it is Watts and Nelson side by side going to bring us to the green flag, and we'll see how it shapes up, as the Porsche pace car is going to take the left-hand turn into pit road. Pit road where drivers are going to have to organise themselves, get onto the horn to their spotters, let each other know when they're coming down.
Green.
And there's the green flag right in the middle of what we were talking about. So a little bit of a strange one for all these drivers. It looks like everyone's going to get through clean though. Very, very fortunate as we are underway. Michael Watts holding off Courtney Nelson for the moment. All these drivers you can see right in the line, except for Clint Rice trying a slightly different line here, a little bit lower on the track than everyone else at the moment, as these guys are going to use as much of the track as possible. There we go. Clint Rice just off the track on the grass a little bit here. So he's going to drop back 3 spots behind Wiseman, MacArthur, and Robinson. Now under fire from Clay Walker alongside. Walker not able to get it done as they make their way into the dip of the left-hander. And back onto the oval section. Clint Rice goes for another spin. Those tyres still got some grass left on them, and he's going to have to rejoin in a way that's not in the way of anyone else. And it looks like Mark Fish caught a lump of wall on the outside as he was heading to the oval section. Thankfully, nothing really too untoward doing in that one. Just lost the rear end as he kept going around. And showing us Courtney Nelson at the front now. So what happened to Mike Watts? I'm going to see if I can cue that one up. We have that here? Doesn't look like we do. Interesting. So not sure what happened there, but Mike Watts is down into the 5th position. I believe he may have missed the corner. And Greg McDaniel shown as being crashed. And there goes Mike Watts having another little bit of an issue. We'll go have a look at what happened to Greg McDaniel. Heading back onto the front straight. And into T1. Just getting a little bit too hot. These brakes, these tyres not warmed up. And around she goes. BeAMoose.org parked right in the middle of the track. That is not where you want to see a moose. And thankfully rejoining without too much of an issue. We're going to go back and have a look at Mark Fisher's self-spin as well. I don't believe he was helped at all, but we shall see and confirm that for certain as we put these drivers on blast as we see what's going on with them. And yep, just a little bit of a self-spin for him. So interesting things happening already at the Charlotte Roval. Courtney Nelson just set the fastest lap of the race with a 121.22, sorry. Setting the pace and a brisk one at that already as he has made his way up to almost a 2-second gap ahead of Shane Wiesman in second now. A decent gap these drivers are building up. And look at this, Dan Hill pressuring Clay Walker for the 6th position. So these two drivers, very similar pace out of the gates. It looks like Dan Hill's been able to continue to stay in his position. Clay Walker's up 2. But it looks like Dan Hill is trying to fire back and fire back in a big way. As these drivers finally have heat warmed in their tyres. Around about lap 3 or 4, the ice rink as labelled by these guys is finally going to start feeling like a warm enough racetrack to really push the issue. Speaking of Dan Hill, right on the back bumper of Clay Walker for a second there. As we are going to ride on board with Dan Hill. So very far off the gas and trying to get on it as quickly as possible, but without spinning the tyres. And on the outside of Clay Walker, Walker's going to have that inside block and does so magnificently. I almost expected him to run a little bit wide there coming out of the dip, but he seemed to be able to control it very, very well. And Dan Hill needing to catch up in any way he can as they head into what I'm going to call the dog leg. It's back chicane here. Very tight one, a nice way to slow the cars down on the back of the oval. Now this is definitely one of my favorite tracks that these high-powered cup cars head to throughout the season. As I said at the top of the show, not always the most loved by the drivers. And these two have company in the form of Tom Ogle right behind now. Ogle has found some form. And Ogle sitting right on the back bumper. These three definitely the closest battles on track at the moment. Another close battle back in the 13th position between Alan Wanamaker and Greg Hammond. And it looks like Wanamaker was able to get a little bit further clear ahead of that one. As we continue to watch this 3-car battle, but we're going to go a little bit further forward as it looks like it's not heating up as much because Michael Watts is on the hunt. And you can see him right behind Josh Robinson. Now, Robinson, interestingly enough, won the Charlotte Oval race here. Not quite the same, of course, an oval and a roval, but still won the oval here during the season. And Michael Watts having the experience of all of his road racing up to this point as well. So these two Titans going at it. Interesting to note, the current leader of the race and the race for second position as well, Courtney Nelson and Shane Wiesman. Neither of those drivers, of the two of them, are in the playoff standings. Your top playoff contenders are Dwayne MacArthur, Josh Robinson, and Tyler Watts, the battle we're seeing right now. So you can see them fan out just a little bit as they get on the gas around the oval section of the racetrack, the first oval section. And you can see Watts is really closing the gap on the entry to these chicanes especially. Feeling a bit more confident, pumping those brakes. As the Castrol Edge backed 84 machine is still trying to make his way back towards the front. Using a whole lot of curve, but really ruining his exit off of that one. And Robinson able to stay in front without too much drama into T1. Now these three drivers still fighting for that coveted third place position right now. See Mike Watts using much more of the racetrack than the other drivers in front. Trying to get all he can out of that machine. And I'm not sure it's going to be enough for the moment, as Josh Robinson setting very similar lap times, as well as MacArthur just ahead. All three of these drivers running very, very similar pace to Nelson and Wiesman in the top two spots as well. And Dan Hill has come down pit road. So obviously deciding to take an interesting strategy call to come down as early as possible. I wonder if that has some sort of strategy call to it. Clint Rice shown as having an incident. We'll cue that one up. Rice trying his hardest to gain back positions as quickly as possible after that spin earlier in the race. And way too much curbing sends him around. Allowing drivers through and then catching himself back up. Dan Hill rejoining the track right around Wanamaker. And Rice trying to be careful not to get involved in anything. Rice right on the back bumper, as well as Hammond. And it looks like Hammond got into Rice just briefly for a little bit there. Rice was able to hold it. But a small nudge out of these drivers as they were slowing down for Dan Hill coming back out onto the circuit. Take a look at that one once more. So this was slightly earlier. Hammond had to give way to both Wanamaker and Rice. There comes Dan Hill out of pit road, joining this three-car battle all of a sudden. And Rice slowing down. Hammond getting on the gas just a little bit too quickly. Gives him a bit of a nudge. And a little old bump and run. Famous with NASCAR as Clint Rice gets that position back on the oval section heading into the brakes for the final chicane. Did see a message pop up. Mr. Michael Watts made his move around Josh Robinson, as we will have a quick look at that one to see how that move was made to get Michael Watts into the 4th position. And Robinson, it looks like, decided to just give him the room. So fairly easy pass for Michael Watts. Robinson deciding he has nothing for the road racing phenom. And Michael Watts is now going to work on Dwayne MacArthur just in front. Well, getting a little bit loose on the exit there is Michael Watts. He's going to have to be careful. Already completed 10 out of the 40 laps here at the Roval. As Michael Watts is really working the back end of Dwayne MacArthur. Your closest battle on track, these two for the 3rd place position. I wonder if Mike Watts is going to be able to catch Courtney Nelson. Nelson now definitely far ahead of this battle. 7 seconds up the track. That's going to be a very tough call no matter how good you are. Courtney Nelson might steal track honors from Watts as the road racing guy to beat. Watts still trying to work on MacArthur. Little bit of lap traffic just ahead. That's going to be Victor Lane, who gets well out of the way for these drivers. Very nicely so. Mark Fish coming out of pit lane, also choosing a different strategy. Just come out in that 20th position, just a lap down, as he's going to be your first driver a lap down at the moment. In that lucky dog spot should a caution arise, and Mike Watts is right on the back bumper of Dwayne MacArthur right now. And almost looking like he is very aggressive into those corners. A lot more than some of these other drivers are. And you gotta wonder if Dwayne MacArthur is gonna give him a little bit more space like Robinson did earlier. But Watts sends it in too deep that time, and that is gonna really hurt his exit. Dwayne MacArthur has a lot of room that he can now use to his advantage as he gains more than a second gap from that unfortunate instance. From Michael Watts' perspective, that is. As he is going to have to work up his way all the way back. That's going to hurt him some. We look to our closest battle on track. Clint Rice has made his way up towards the back bumper of Brian Lynch. And Lynch is going to go high. And on the inside, there goes Clint Rice. Rice up to the 11th position. So the 6 machine, we knew that Clint Rice always has a lot of pace coming into these road courses as well as on the ovals. Fortunately, seeming to get involved in a few more incidents than I'm sure he would like, and that causing him to not have as many wins this season as we have come to expect from this driver. But he will be ready to fire back next season. I'm sure of that, if this is anything to go by, and potentially still a couple wins to go, as we do have another 4 races after this Roval event to look forward to for season's end. Mark Fish came down pit road again. So not sure what that was for, as he may be having a little bit of a struggle in the 42 backed GoPro machine. Battle up front once again. Michael Watts tracking down Wayne MacArthur. And just while we're looking at this, we're going to go to the nose cam. Mr. Robinson just behind this battle. As they catch up to some lap traffic as well, you can see just ahead of them. Lap traffic going very high, staying out of the way of these drivers. Very, very respectful indeed. That is the Fox Sports machine of Dean Gear. Josh Robinson unfortunately compromising his exit to allow that driver to still be there on that inside line. So Dean Gear goes a lap down. So 19 drivers still on the lead lap. And it looks like Clint Rice is going to claim another one as he makes his way into the top 10 underneath Lloyd Moore. Moore, and I'm sure a lot of these other drivers that are in playoff contention to make their way to getting that ever elusive Cup Series victory, they're going to want to play it as safe as possible if they are unhappy with how the car is driving at the moment. But we're going to go back up to Dwayne MacArthur, who's getting held up a little bit by Martin, and it looks like Martindale has been able to get out of the way. Wasn't exactly sure where he should go. Patrick Martindale a little bit spooked by that one, and I certainly cannot blame him, as that was a bit of a mess from all parties. Just an awkward place to catch traffic in that uphill, downhill dip towards the end of the infield section. Lap 14 out of 40 completed. We are into lap 15 now. These drivers settling into very much of a groove. As Josh Robinson, speaking of groove has fallen back in the standings a little bit. Not standings, but fallen back from this battle a little bit, as he has just regained his composure. He doesn't want to push the car much harder than it needs to. Potentially a fuel-saving strategy from Josh Robinson. Gotta wonder if some of these drivers may want to try and make it all the way to the end on one tank of fuel. The fuel window estimated to be 33 to 38 laps. Tom Ogle did come down pit road. He is back out, as well as Dan Hill, who has come down pit road as well. Your only two drivers who've come down pit road of the top 15. So we'll see. We'll have to see how that strategy works up for them. Now they're going to have to be very careful on those brand new tires, should they have taken any. It looks like they didn't. Just a bit of a splash and dash for all these drivers, except for Mark Fish, who has been down multiple times. Dustin Martinson coming into pit lane. He's going to get the 19 machine serviced and ready to go back out. Just a quick splash and dash for him. From the 16th position. So Courtney Nelson putting on an absolute clinic right now up front. A caution will very much be something that he does not want to see. And a caution, something that we will not expect to see on a road course. Something that is likely to happen unless there is a massive track blockage. Now it looks like, interestingly enough, MacArthur is able to keep Watts at bay quite well for the moment. And that has got to feel good for the team of the 83 machine. And I'm sure a massive confidence booster. As we're riding on the gearbox of Dwayne MacArthur, looking back and gaining some, and that is why Watts comes down pit road. So in comes Mike Watts. Now this has got to be an interesting strategy call, and we know why he's made it. It makes perfect sense from his perspective. As drivers go by, we're going to check back in with the leader, Courtney Nelson, heading out back onto the oval section right now. And he is absolutely on a perler, as he has made his way without too much problem so far in the 48 machine. I can't help seeing that and being reminiscent of the final few years of Jimmy Johnson. Has to be said, with that sponsor number combo. He is making his way. All drivers being very, very respectful on the Roval, allowing a lot of room to the leader. And you can see he's not taking too many curbs. Not trying to get the car unsettled, just going about his business and hitting his marks very, very nicely. Is Courtney Nelson. Clay Walker down pit road. So Clay Walker comes in from the 5th position. He's going to come down pit road. Mike Watts is back out and will regain that 5th position from
Oh, Pearson gets into the 95 of Folks. Here comes the caution.
Flag is dropped here at Daytona, and away we go for the first time. Nicholas Morcel, Sean.
Looks like most get through unscathed. Look at that, there's Reed Gibson. A big move at the inside line of Dom's, possibly a little bit of contact.
Now, as we've got 3 wide action going through turns 1 and 2.
And they're underway. Eric Hahn takes a nice jump. Wilson hasn't let him go very far.
Nice to go out here for Circuit Spa-Francorchamps. Alex Johnson's off to a brilliant start there.
Just how oddly shaped this one is. We saw in the background Eric Hahn go for a bit of a swing, and he's gone and he's over.
New stuff. Cody Graham's the one-on-one up into second place. Alex Johnson 6/10 to lead at the moment.
They're dicey up front. There's Andrew Kessel, Justin Sang.
They are ready to go. The lights are out, and away we go for the very first time here at Okayama International Circuit. Finley Fitzsimmons.
And we are back as quickly as can be. Now we are hoping that everything is sorted out and looks good right now. And it looks like that is the case, so let's hope it stays that way. A little bit of connection issues on my end. I must apologize for that one. That is Australia not liking me for that brief moment. And it may take a few seconds for everything to get back up and running smoothly, as we can see Chris Bates having a little bit of my connection issues still struggling for him. Thankfully they cannot see this or feel this on track, so it won't affect the racing at all. Unfortunately affecting the broadcast though, so I do apologize to the fullest. Welcome back, says Jim Smith. Thank you very much, and I hope that wasn't too long a wait. We're trying to get that sorted out as quickly as possible. But we are back, and Courtney Nelson still out front at the moment. We have Shane Wiseman, the second position still. A couple of seconds back, so I believe that gap has maintained its position and hasn't gained or deteriorated all that much. MacArthur still holding off Josh Robinson. Both those drivers still yet to pit, as Michael Watts is trying to track them back down in the 5th position. We did get a report that that Clay Walker crashed. Now, I'm not sure if that happened because of our software or because of our internet breaking or not. We'll try and see if we can get a replay of it. And it looks like that is exactly what has happened. So we're going to ignore that happened. But it did happen while we were away, according to my software. So Josh Robinson now down pit road. 23 machine getting a quick splash and dash. And he is back on his way out. A very awkward pit lane here. Gotta have to watch that entry. And it looks like Mike Watts is going to take that spot. No problem at all. So what's up into 4th? Pac-Man. Vegemite break is over. I'm actually a very odd Australian, and I will admit this on broadcast. I don't like Vegemite very much. I know, shocker. But anyway. So Mike Watts back up into the 4th position. But a long way behind MacArthur, who hasn't come down pit road as of yet. Greg Hammond down pit road. And there comes Dwayne MacArthur just behind. So this will be interesting to see just where Watts comes out when MacArthur is done. Or, yep, where Watts comes out the score sheet as MacArthur is coming down pit road. Will that allow him to make the pass into the 3rd place without having to truly contest for it? Massive jump over the curves for Mike Watts, getting airtime, I believe, almost on all 4 wheels for that section. And Dwayne MacArthur, you can see there just for a minute, was coming out of pit road. It's not going to be quick enough. And Josh Robinson is even going to take the position away. Oh, and that's why MacArthur spun on pit road. Oh, big development. Tom Ogle goes past. Dan Hill might be coming past. There's Victor Lane. Gonna have to watch that entry. There's Dan Hill just behind. So MacArthur comes out 6th. And that has really got to hurt. Let's have a look at that one quickly as he comes off pit road. So quick splash and dash just like everyone else. And just gets on the gas too much going round and even hits the barricade. That could have some very interesting application or implication I should say, as he heads back onto the oval section of the racetrack. We're going to have to see if that hurts him at all with Dan Hill right on the back bumper, fighting for that 6th position now. So Clint Rice goes well deep into the corner and has to take a bit of a monster truck line, and I'm sure has a pretty hefty slowdown due to that fact. Clay Walker takes that position without a second thought up into the 8th spot, and Clint Rice is going to have to drop back to 9th. So that was an excursion if I've ever seen one. I want to see, actually, you know what? I definitely want to see what that looked like, what that felt like from inside the car, because that would be really cool. Go, Clint Rice sends it to the inside. Oh, crunch. Not sure if you could hear the crunches that I could, but definitely that car not liking going over those curbs. As Dean Gear, we've seen, has jumped to pit lane. So, sorry Dean, we're going to have to put you on blast for this one. What happened here? Getting off the exit of the oval, looks like he's already a bit loose. Chucks on the brakes way too late. And that car just not slowing at all. That thing just kept going, even though he had the brakes all locked up. So that was absolute. I don't know if there was equipment failure there or what. Got on the brakes a little bit late, but even still, the car just did not slow down whatsoever. As we have Courtney Nelson still trying to hold off Wiesman. Wiesman has actually caught up about 5/10 at this point. So he has closed the gap a little bit over the course of since we had that break. So we've got 11 cars still on the lead lap. Brian Lynch, your next car in front of the leader position-wise. The 9 back to Hooters machine. And it looks like everyone fairly spaced out here for the moment. Closest battle on track is this one for the lead as Wiesman really closes that gap. That's got to be a bit scary for the leader to see just how quick Wiesman is coming through. And that's going to be really interesting as well, because maybe Courtney Nelson is thinking, I've got to come down pit road and get some fresh rubber underneath me, because these are wearing out. But Wiesman is getting just to that point where he looks like he is loving how that car is feeling. Courtney Nelson may have got a little bit of an off track there as he really jumped those curbs. Lap down driver, the number 9 machine. It's going to allow him to go by. That is actually going to be Brian Lynch. Now Brian Lynch usually running a Hooters car, but it does not look like he's running Hooters right now. No, he's running Ham's beer. So Hooters and Hams. Sorry, I couldn't help making my very small childlike brain laugh at that one. As Shane Wiesman has come down pit road. So interesting Wiesman looking very, very racy, decided to come down pit road first and beat Nelson to the punch. So we're going to have to see how that one works out in his favor. And hope that Wiesman doesn't do what MacArthur did earlier on, and it looks like he's able to get out cleanly without any problems. And still out in the second position with still a nice gap to Mike Watts behind of about 6 seconds. So definitely some breathing room, but Nelson is going to have to come down pit road. We have had every driver in the top 7 come down pit road except for Courtney Nelson. Clay Walker, the first one who has stayed out this whole race so far, apart from the leader in the 8th position, as well as Clint Rice in 9th, who, it has to be said, as James Smith says, has been on quite the adventure tonight as Courtney Nelson makes his way down pit road. That's the wrong camera I was looking for. So we're going to have to see if we can see Wiesman in the back of shot at all. There goes Chris Bates. And I think that was Wiesman just there. Potentially. So out comes Courtney Nelson. Where is Wiesman? Here he comes. They're very, very close on track to each other, and it is on. It is on like Donkey Kong. As sorry if that was offensive to anyone, I just really wanted to say it. And Courtney Nelson is right under fire by Shane Wiesman all of a sudden. And this is very, very interesting all of a sudden. Saying that too much. Here is the onboard of Shane. 69 machine trying his hardest to catch up to the 48 just ahead. And taking those curbs absolutely beautifully. Track in front is blocked a little bit by traffic. Bates gets out of the way. Who else is up there on that high side? Wanamaker's just ahead of these two. Someone else went up high to avoid getting involved in anything. I believe... was that up high? I'm not sure. As it may have been Dustin Martinson, and it is. So Martinson lets them go through without any issues whatsoever. Looks like Wanamaker has let these drivers go through as well. Michael Watts crashed. The developments keep on coming, and the hits just keep on hitting. What has happened to Watts, sitting in a pretty comfortable position in 3rd place? And oh, he's lost it in a very I've never seen anyone lose it there. It's just out of the corner. Too much to be getting on the power too quickly, but at the same time, I'm not sure what that was. So sitting in pit road, and that is going to cost him his night. Josh Robinson's just been gifted 3rd place back, and Victor Lane now is going to be in the spotlight. So that is Lloyd Moore, not too far behind Victor Lane. And what happened with Victor? Oh, way too much curbing. And manages to keep it off the wall. Great job from Victor there. And rejoins the track without any drama. So, Courtney Nelson still out front. Shane Wiesman not too far behind at all. These two in a class of their own. 12 seconds ahead of Joshua Robinson in the 3rd position. This race has been all sorts of eventful for the broadcaster as well as the drivers. Charlotte Roval definitely giving us some kind of insight into what it's like to drive around here for these drivers, as Courtney Nelson is still trying everything in his power to keep in front of Shane Wiesman. We're on the gearbox of Courtney Nelson. And aggressively taking those curbs, a little bit more so than Wiesman just behind. Wiesman looks a little bit more comfortable than Courtney right now, and I cannot blame him for that. As Nelson is trying everything. Ooh, Nelson takes those two a little bit less aggressively that time than Wiesman though. Lap traffic getting out of the way. I believe that was Victor Lane. Yes, it was. In the background there. These two drivers very, very close together. This is a battle I did not expect to see coming into tonight for the lead, but I'm very happy we get to witness it as Courtney Nelson still trying oh so hard, clips the outside barricade. That is potentially going to allow Wiesman to get right alongside. Not quite enough, as his exit was compromised just a little bit by Nelson still being there on the outside line. He's going to have to send it in if he wants to make a move, it looks like, and that is a recipe for disaster. He sends it in just oh so too much. And he is right on the back bumper, less than 10 laps to go. We're heading to 8 to go in a minute. As Nelson and Wiesman still side by side. Wiesman getting a nicer jump out of the corner, but not able to get the power down as that car was still unsteady as it landed on those two right sides. And Nelson able to bring that gap up just a little bit to 3/10, but closing very quickly is Wiesman. And this is proving to be a very, very spectacular show as Nelson is holding on as quickly as possible. Neither of these drivers, as I said earlier, are playoff drivers, but they are happy to show their skill. And both of them tagging the outside wall. Nelson gets into it a lot more though. Going to slow both of them down. And it just looks like Wiesman is not able to make that pass yet again. But he's going to be thinking to himself, I'm sure, this looks like the best place to make a pass. So he may try and set one up there for the future. Just brake a little bit earlier and get us on the power as quickly as possible than Nelson. And see if he can line himself up for that chicane. As I said earlier, calling the dog leg. The back straight. Not sure if it's actually called that, but that is what I'm calling it. As it's probably more aptly named the bus stop, to be fair. There are a few corners at this track that could be named that, as Wiesman goes for a little bit of a slide, able to hold it together. Nelson still trying desperately. Wiesman using all of the track. Victor Ryan cheering on Wiesman. Oh, Wiesman has a little bit of an issue there, but maybe using my advice from earlier, slowing it down earlier than he otherwise would have. But Nelson firing back with a very clean exit. He did not tag the outside wall that time by. Potentially learning his lesson. And using all of the curbs is Courtney Nelson. He's been getting love from the fans. The 69 machine may have used up a little bit too much, trying desperately to catch up and losing all of the curbs. That was unbelievably quick through there. Can't believe he actually held that together. Absolutely on a tear here tonight is Shane Wiesman, trying desperately to catch up to the back of Nelson. And this may be one of the only battles on track, but I am not complaining. This is a very heated one, that's for sure. Pearson going to be just ahead, hopefully not going to get himself involved in this battle for the lead oh so much. It's a bad place to catch traffic though, as Pearson's going to be just far enough ahead, I believe, not to be involved in this one. Yes, that is the case, as Nelson has found his groove and is starting to get that gap back. Lot of traffic ahead of the leader. This could be very interesting. Patrick Martindale. Wayne Moose Knuckle Hufford in the 11th position. First one on the lead lap, the last one on the lead lap, I should say. As he is still fighting to be on the lead lap, so he has every right to be there. And he is going to try and get out of the way very smartly. I'm sure that is not what Wiesman wanted to see though, as he wanted them to battle tooth and nail for that spot so that he could get himself up there. And he's going to want the same courtesy, and does get it from Wayne Hufford, but almost loses the back end, manages to save it. That is going to severely hurt his exit speed though, and Nelson is just going to run away right now. Ashton Cheshire cheering on Courtney. Courtney has extended the gap onto that oval section to 1.7 seconds. So definitely a lead he wants to see. Closed back up to 1.6 now is Wiesman. Still seeming to be a little bit faster, but all in the wrong places, as whenever he catches up to the back bumper of Nelson, it doesn't seem to be able to do him many favors. 4 laps to go in this one. Still some traffic ahead of the leader. That is going to be Brian Lynch, who is on the lead lap in the 10th position. So we're going to have to see if Brian Lynch has any give in his heart. I say heart, that's brutal. I should not have said that. In his... Oh man, I don't know where I was going with that. I apologize for that. That sounds much worse than what I meant. But if he is going to get out of the way, and it looks like he will, Mark Fish drops all the way down to the bottom. Brian Lynch all the way up high. Let's Courtney Nelson through. So Lloyd Moore now, who is also on that lead lap, is right in front of the leader. And Wiesman has dropped back a little bit more to 1.8 seconds now. Nelson not wanting to get held up at all by Lloyd Moore right in front. Moore's going to have to do something. Is he going to give him the inside of this corner into T1? Yes, he does. The nose was shown by Nelson, making it very clear he wants the spot and wants it quickly. You can see Wiesman has caught up significantly in that back section. Oh, Wiesman's going to want more to get out of the way. Lined him up beautifully to get through without having to really compromise either driver all that much, as Moore is in the battle with Lynch as well for that 9th spot. You can see just behind the leaders. So that was about as good a pass as any to allow both drivers to get through unscathed. And while this is happening, these drivers have actually gained. It shows you the pace that they're running right now. They've actually gained position, or gained time, I should say, on Josh Robinson in the 3rd place spot. Throughout all of this, while we've been watching the leaders, they have gained 3 seconds on Joshua Robinson. And last time by, both setting a sub 121 lap, which is absolutely phenomenal here. They're running almost quali pace at this point. as both these drivers trying desperately to stay out in front and get as many honours as possible. 2 laps to go. Nelson still out front, still leading the way. Lloyd Moore, Brian Lynch both coming down pit road. They haven't been before. So they are right on the edge of their fuel window and needing to. As is Wayne Hufford and Clay Walker, sitting in the 9th and 7th position, I should say, respectively. I said Hufford first. Josh Robinson all of a sudden sets the fastest lap of the race, though. A 1:20.56. So all of a sudden, Robinson has fired back at me for saying that he has dropped off of the lead pack. But it looks like Nelson still trying to keep it together. Now that gap is coming back down once again, but I'm not sure if it's going to be enough. Wiesman is going to have some help from traffic, I believe, as we approach the white flag lap. Not a single caution or anything to ruin this one, as Nelson takes the white flag. He's going to see it any second now. There, it's out. Good on you, Barney, sending out the white flag. Joining us at every single race. Cheers to Barney the flagman there, as Courtney Nelson is still going to hold off. Shane Wiesman with the fastest lap of the race, I believe, maybe even faster than his qualifying lap of a 20.23. So absolutely flying, trying to catch the back end of Nelson. I'm not sure if it's going to be enough, though. 1.2 is quite a big ask. It's going to be a tight one, though, as Nelson is trying not to get any sort of damage on the 48 machine. Has a little bit of a bobble on the dip. Able to get it squared up, not too problematic-wise. Wiesman has closed that gap down to a second. But all Nelson has to do is be very clean. And it looks like that's just what he's going to be able to do. The gap now down to just under a second, but it's certainly not enough, as Nelson only has the short chicane to go at the back of the track. And the alley number 48 machine is going to make it a win here at the Charlotte Roval with a nice slide to the end. Wiesman not too far behind. And Robinson, I believe, will take a pretty resounding 3rd place, as here he comes through to claim his podium spot. But all eyes are on these 2 drivers who gave us a true show right at the end of this one. And that was absolutely phenomenal. I'm sure you can agree with me in saying that that was fantastic to see at the end. Interestingly enough, Clay Walker, Wayne Hufford sitting in the 7th and 9th positions did not pit and managed to make it to the end of the race. So fuel saving strategy potentially paying off quite well for those 2, as they found themselves in the 7th and 9th positions. So Courtney Nelson with his first win of the season. It may come very, very late in the season, but I'm sure it doesn't matter to him all that much. He's got one, and that is the main thing for sure, as they have the win photo to be taken. Chevrolet, and Ford, your top 3 positions. We'll bring up the results tab for you And there you go. Courtney Nelson bringing it home in P1. Shane Wiesman in the second position with Josh Robinson taking it home in third. Tom Ogle and Dwayne MacArthur rounding out your top 5 with Dan Hill, Clay Walker, Clint Rice, Wayne Hufford, and Lloyd Moore, your top 10. Greg McDaniel in 11th, Brian Lynch, Chris Bates, 12th and 13th. Greg Hammond in 14th, Dustin Martinson in 15th, Alan Wanamaker 16th, Mark Fish in 17th, Patrick Martindale in the 18th spot. 19th will be Victor Lane, Bruce Pearson in the 20th position. 21st, unfortunate racing for Mike Watts with that spin, and that is definitely he's going to feel the sting of that one, as Dean Gear is in the 22nd spot, and Troy Baker with a did not start. So these drivers, we're going to get ready to talk to them in the waiting room in the broadcast booth in just a second, as we wait for them to make their way to the waiting room. We're going to get ready for race interviews, and we will talk to you in just a minute. Don't go anywhere. All right, it looks like we have Josh Robinson up in the booth ready for an interview, and we might get that underway while we wait for the other two to make their way up. So, Josh Robinson in the third place position. Josh, how are you feeling after that one? It looked pretty solid.
Hey Gareth, feeling pretty good. Definitely content with the podium at a road course. I kind of couldn't ask for anything better.
Yeah, well, talk us through your thoughts and feelings for that one, because it looked like a fairly, I want to say fairly safe race from your perspective. It looked like you just took your time, took your patience, didn't get too much of the unbalancing curbs here at the Charlotte Roval, and also let Mike Watts by, I believe. You just let him go, thought that he might be a bit quicker, and all of a sudden you found yourself in third position.
Yeah, early on, I think Mike had a little bit of a mishap, and so he got behind me, caught right up to me as he would, because he is phenomenal at these road courses. So I knew I was not going to be able to hold him off for like 35 laps, so I let him go, and then I did exactly what you just said. I just played it safe. I seen how well the other guys in the top 5 are running. Courtney was super fast, Shane was super fast, and Dwayne and Watts are always good. So I thought my best case scenario was just to not wreck myself.
That being said, Josh, I mean, I agree with you from what I saw for most of your performance, but I will say that with about 3 laps to go, you got the fastest lap on track. Unfortunately, it was taken very swiftly by Shane Wiseman later on, but you had the fastest lap there, so you weren't exactly pulling your punches towards the end either.
No, that I you can turn your relative off, so you're not seeing like your lap times and whatnot, and that's what I do when I race. And I heard him say that, and I knew him being my spotter say that I just got the fastest lap, and then I knew how out of control I felt on that lap, and it was like, okay, it was a good checkup, because it was like you don't need to be doing that.
Well, I tell you what, it's been a great job talking to you, and you've been stellar all season, so I fully expect to see you up here in the booth again, Josh. But before we let you go, let us know who you're shouting out for tonight's third place finish. Family, sponsors, friends, the floor is yours.
Want to let Courtney congrats on his first win, and Shane congrats on the second place. Those guys were super fast, and they drove a very good race. Shout out to the League and Mins and to Dwayne and Victor for putting this on. Shout out to Kim Bull for the series sponsorship, and shout out to everyone that came, because this is road courses tend to not get great car counts, but we had a pretty good solid car count, as we always do in this Sunday night league. And as always, Gareth, thank you for doing the broadcast.
Yeah, no worries at all, and I'm sure we'll see you up here in the booth again, Josh, very shortly. So have a good one.
Have a good day, Gareth.
All right, that was Josh Robinson bringing it home in the third place position. In the second place, though, we're going to bring up Shane into the booth. Shane, how you going? How you feeling? What's going through your head?
Yeah, just excited to get my first podium in OBRL, and really my first clean, road course race, although I kind of pride myself on my road courses. So,
Well, I tell you what, it looked like a very, very good battle between you and Nelson towards the end there. Can you run through what was going through your head while you were catching him for the lead, and then that battle that took place over the course of, I want to say, the last almost 10 laps?
well, I wasn't in the playoff run, didn't have the chance to run full time this season. So I definitely wanted to race them clean first and foremost. Obviously tried undercutting them there just because we were running up on lap traffic. Thought I could maybe get out in front of them. I think I probably took too much fuel there at the end. I think I had 15, 20 laps left at the end of the race. So probably lost half a second there, but he was beating me pretty consistently out of the first chicane, and then I would gain it all back on the second chicane. So it was just trying to run clean and beat him where he was weak and not be too weak where he was strong.
Yeah, well, I mean, talk us through one more question I have for you, really, is talk us through the decision to come down pit road a little bit on the early side, is what I would say, because you just seemed to have the car underneath you perfectly. You were catching Nelson, and then you came into pit while you were still behind him by about, I think it was about half a second, and he hadn't pit yet, but he was a bit slower than you. So what was the thought process there? Were you trying to see if you could undercut him and so that you could stay out in front, like when he came out of the pits, you'd be ahead, or what was the thoughts?
Yeah, everyone here at OBRL races really. I think there's a gentleman aspect to it, but for whatever reason, I just could not get around lapped cars efficiently. And there was, at the time I decided to pit, there was a car right in front of Courtney, and then there was another car maybe a second up. And every time I would run up on a lapped car, it felt like I was losing a half a second. So I just wanted to pit, get it over with, because I knew I was going to have to, and maybe have some open track once I got back out there, was the idea behind that.
All right, sounds good. Well, Shane, before we let you go, well, we'll ask you one more quick question. Is it Wiesman or Wiseman? Because I've been meaning to ask this for a while, and I feel so bad that I haven't been able to get to you yet.
You've been nailing it, and you're about the only one, Wiesman. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Oh, sweet. Well, that is good news. I'm going to have to make sure to stick with that one from now, because I think I've been flip-flopping a little bit. But anyway, who would you like to give a shout out to for the second place finish? Definitely nothing to sneeze at here at the Charlotte Roval.
Probably my teammates in Sub 40 Racing. They kind of led me into OBRL. I'm actually relatively new to iRacing, just came over from NASCAR Racing 2003. But I'd also like to give a shout out to my NASCAR 2003 league, FSB Racing, that I got into around COVID. So just the guys that kind of made my childhood dream come true here in my late 30s.
All right. Well, Shane, I mean, it's been a fantastic job from you, and it's been absolutely amazing talking to you up here in the booth. I'm sure we'll see you here in the future. If not this season, next season, if you stick around, I'm sure you'll have another run at it.
Yeah, thank you for everything you do. Appreciate it.
And no worries. We'll see you later. All right, that was Shane Wiesman bringing it home in the second place position. But up next, the man of the hour, Courtney Nelson. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good.
Pretty good is one way to describe it, that's for sure. Now, Courtney, I got to ask, how much pressure were you feeling right at the end there?
Shane was all over me. I was feeling it like crazy.
Yeah, I bet you were. It was looking like he was catching you just a little bit there, but it seemed like you were able to keep the car. It well, what it actually seemed like was you were able to take the curbs a lot stronger than what Shane was able to do and not unbalance the car. Was it just you white knuckling it around over those curbs, or was it just the way you positioned the car as you headed towards them that just meant that it felt safe?
I was sitting it and hoping for the best, to be honest. I was running the curbs most of the night, but he was catching me so fast I just had to send it.
Well, it certainly played to your advantage. Just quickly as well, before we let you go, we want to ask you the quick question about what happened to Mike Watts in front, because he was in front of you at the start, and then I've got to admit that we actually missed it on broadcast. It didn't show up anywhere. What quite happened there?
We came to go on that first oval turn and he started turning sideways. I let off and he ended up on the apron there. I was a car length or two if I'd have to look at the replay, but it felt like I was a decent ways behind him.
All right. Well, I mean, either way, the track became yours from then on. No one was really able to challenge you except for Shane towards the end there, but didn't have enough. So, Courtney, fantastic race. I'm sure we'll hear more from you in the future. But before we let you go, who would you like to give a shout out to for this win tonight at the Charlotte Roval?
All the guys in the league, Dwayne that runs it, all the admins and everything. This last month or so has been an absolute blast, and I feel fortunate enough to be able to race with them.
All right, sounds good, Courtney. Ever humble in victory. So we will see you and talk to you again soon. I'm sure of it. Have a good one. Celebrate with some champagne.
10-4, have a good evening.
All right, that was Courtney Nelson, the 48 machine, bringing it home with a win tonight at the Charlotte Roval. As you can see, his car mounting those curbs, as he said, just sending it and hoping that it sticks, and it definitely did that. We will see you in the future next week. Every single week, we will bring you the action at OBRL on the next 4 races. So look forward to that as we head towards the end of the season. We are going to see you then, obviously, as I have struggled with my sign off once again. It has been a phenomenal part of my week, always is, to bring you the action, 1080p in 60 FPS. And unfortunately, with this one, my internet's struggling a little bit, but hopefully in the future, it will be a little bit better. I have been Gareth McAllister with Team Goon Squad, bringing you the Old Bastards Racing League Kimball Cup Series. And on behalf of everyone, we would like to thank you for coming in, spectating tonight, joining us once again, and we will see you next week. Have a good one. Bye bye.